Good evening, viewers. I come to you today from sitting on my radiator because I spent the last 40 minutes or so on my rooftop in rain that got rather predictably colder and wetter as long as I was up there. So I spent a good amount of time taking around 22 series of photos using different focus bracketing and focus stacking techniques. And I'm recording this video on my Samsung S9 Plus because that never occurred to me as a video capturing device before. That I'm gonna open Photoshop, learn how to stack photos, and see if I can figure out what exactly the number of shots and the focus differential mean. So focus stacking is inherently pretty simple with Photoshop. You want to open Lightroom on one half of your screen and Photoshop on the other. With your photos in the Lightroom catalog, click on the first one and then shift click on the last one in your series. Right click on those and edit in open as layers in Photoshop. And then we wait. Once our layers have populated our layer channel here, click on the first one, right click on the last one, scroll up to edit and auto align layers. Automatic is okay. And now we wait. Once that dialog closes, if you have done nothing else with your computer, the layers should remain selected. Back up to edit, and just below auto align layers will be auto blend layers. Stack layers, leave these two selected, and okay. And now we wait for the third and final time. There you have it. All the existing layers will have a black and white masked layer beside them. If we drag this guy back up to the top, there is our merged layer. Now you can delete the remaining layers and continue editing, or if you're finished, I am just going to export that layer, quick export, as a PNG file. Now, having done this 23 different times with ranges of photos going from 1 up to 16, I'm going to switch back to my Olympus camera for better quality, because this works surprisingly well. It's a good quality camera, good quality sound, but it's just not satisfying. Okay, so having quickly realized that looking at my notes and explaining those to you won't be any good without the screen recording, let's just do the screen recording. So here's the first of 3 tests. The way I structured my little experiment on the roof, I took the same photo with each lens, 6 sets of photos from each lens. So the file name here is the 918 is the zoom that I was taking, the 3x1. 3 is the number of shots requested in the Olympus settings, and the 1 is the focus differential. Now, requesting the number of shots might be a strange thing from settings. You're supposed to set them and they stay. It's not how the Olympus menu works. If I requested 3 shots here, or 100 shots, or 7, or 999, I normally got 3, if not 5, 6, or 7. Once I only got 1 shot, and once I got 11, once I got 16. The numbers are somewhat arbitrary, it sounds. I compared these photos to each other, seeing what the depth of field looked like. Why might they lean? Is there a common factor as to why 4 of the 6 photos I took with the 14-150 lens only took 3 when I requested 100, 700 and 999 respectively? Who knows? I could not find any common factors. That said, having combined all these in Photoshop, not many of them look spectacular. This one requested 100 shots at a focus differential of 3, seemed to give me a nice clear background and a solid foreground, but using the lens in landscape at its widest angle, got some distortion here in the front. It doesn't look spectacular. Same requesting 100 at 8 of a focus differential. Maybe it took less photos and seemed to come up with a similar style, maybe not as successful in keeping my background clear, I suspect. I wish I could zoom in, but I can't. Not with my screen recording program. requesting 999 photos at a differential of 10 should have taken. That photo took 3. I requested 1,000 and I got 3, so I've given up on figuring that out. After that, the 114 to 150 lens seemed to be more successful with less distortion, as you would expect from a not a wide angle lens or an ultra wide. They did give me the most clear backgrounds, and these 2 spires in the background, wherever in the story they are, do show up clearest from this one. 700 shots requested at a focus differential of 8. The 100 to 400 looks good on the skull, on the middle part of the skull. The background really fell apart here. Even around the outside of the skull looks like an aura. Chances are that's my doing, my bad for shivering in the cold. Next time I will bring a tripod, and it also may have had to do with rain. So at that point I moved on to my second test when I realized the 100 to 400 lens that I have qualifies for focus stacking in camera. So I took 4 of these photos at a focus differential of 1, 3, 8 and 10. I don't have once I turn the focus stacking on in camera, you lose the ability to set how many shots you want. It will take 8 and you will get the 1 stacked photo afterwards. So you'll end up with 9 from any single shot. These were great at focusing on the skull itself in the foreground, particularly this one at a focus differential of 1. That makes sense. I would not have expected that photo to have a great view of the building, it being across the street, and it has done its job perhaps of getting the skull and this little pedestal clear. The focus differential of 10, it seems they didn't do the job. None of them, even 3, 8 and 10 couldn't get the background clear, and I can't figure out why. If we have a look at number 10, if you'll ignore my camera signaling because I was losing the ability to write on the board in the wet and my fingers were freezing. So picture to picture you can see where it took the photos. We started out looking focused clean on the skull, then much closer, 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 approximately on the skull again, and then that was it. It didn't look past the skull. I don't know why. I don't know if that's a setting that's in there. I certainly couldn't find it if it is. Oh no, I've opened the crap. As I was saying, shot number 1 focuses on the skull. 2 is a lot closer. 3, 4, 5, 6 should be back about on plane with the skull, as I understand from the videos I've seen. They don't seem to be. 7 seems to have only got back as far as the focal plane of the skull and not beyond it. Sorry, 8. And then the last one is our final. What am I talking about? Is that? Yes, that is our final crop. Overall, not inherently majorly impressed by this. Probably just need some more figuring out. The last little test I did, in order to attempt to keep this video concise, is at the 700 requests at a focal length of focus differential of 3, I stood backwards from the camera and zoomed in a little more with the 14 to 150 lens to see if that affected the composition. If affecting the composition and the physical distance between the lens and the object had much of an effect on the outcome. So take 1, I was about 2 feet away, about as close as the lens can focus at about 14, 15, 16 millimeters. It's a pretty good photo. That's probably one of the best. Take 2, I stood about 5 feet further back and zoomed in a little more, also looks pretty good. This one, I guess I was starting to lose it then. I was probably 10, 12 feet back. But as you will see, I assume this is my hand shaking, gave our skull a little aura around here, so we really lost the quality in the foreground, especially down low across the front. And actually the entire border of the photo seems to have lost itself. The buildings are quite clear. Take 4 has lost the foreground and the skull. That's probably a lighting. Maybe there was a break in the clouds, although I can't imagine that was the case. And take 5, I was about 20, little over 20 feet back. Moderately successful, and I don't know why. Can't see any logic here at all. So, with all that in mind, back to the studio. So, who knows? Maybe some more testing will help me out there. I will link in the video description to one of the articles I tried to follow here, and I just couldn't get the kind of success that the Olympus Pros can bring out. Doesn't mean I'm going to stop, because this sounds like a fantastic tool to have in your arsenal. I see a lot of references to it in macro photography, which makes sense with a super narrow focal plane and a macro lens, but I for one want landscapes, and I will not rest until I get them. So with all that behind me now, thanks for tuning in. Episode 10, I'm a third of the way through. I wasn't sure if I'd even make it that far. So until next time, good night.